The uninvited guest in the small, sleepy town of Ravenwood, everyone knew each other. It was the kind of place where doors were left unlocked and neighbors looked out for one another. But there was one house that stood apart from the rest. The old Thompson house had been abandoned for years, its windows boarded up and its paint peeling. The townsfolk whispered about it, sharing tales of the strange occurrences that had driven the Thompson family away. One crisp autumn evening, a young couple named Sarah and Jack moved into the old house. They were new to Ravenwood and hadn't heard the rumors. Excited to start their life together, they paid no mind to the town's warnings. The first night in the house was uneventful. They unpacked their belongings, made dinner, and went to bed early. But as the clock struck midnight, Sarah was awakened by a soft, scratching noise. She sat up, listening intently. It seemed to be coming from the walls. Jack stirred beside her, but didn't wake. Sarah got out of bed and followed the sound down the hallway to the living room. The scratching grew louder, more frantic. She pressed her ear against the wall, her heart pounding. Just as she was about to wake Jack, the noise stopped. Shaking her head, she chalked it up to the house settling and went back to bed. The next morning, over breakfast, Sarah mentioned the noise to Jack. He laughed it off, suggesting it was probably mice. Determined to enjoy their new home, they decided to spend the day exploring the town. As they walked through the streets, the locals gave them strange looks and whispered behind their backs, "Did you hear? The new couple moved into the Thompson house. Poor souls." They have no idea. That evening, as the sun set, Sarah and Jack returned home. They made a cozy fire in the fireplace and settled down with a movie. But as the night wore on, the atmosphere in the house grew heavy, oppressive. The fire flickered and dimmed, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Just as the movie ended, the scratching noise returned. This time, it was louder, more insistent. Sarah clutched Jack's arm, her eyes wide with fear. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. Jack nodded, his face pale. "Yeah, I hear it." They followed the noise to the basement door. The scratching was louder now, as if something was desperate to get out. Jack hesitated, then grabbed a flashlight and opened the door. The smell of damp earth and decay wafted up from the darkness below. With Sarah close behind him, Jack descended the creaky wooden stairs. At the bottom, they found an old, dusty room filled with cobwebs and broken furniture. The scratching was coming from behind a large, rusted metal cabinet. Jack moved it aside, revealing a hidden door. It was old and weathered, with deep claw marks gouged into the wood. Sarah gasped. What could have done that? Jack didn't answer. He pushed the door open, revealing a small, dark room. In the center of the room was a circle of candles, their flames flickering weakly. Inside the circle lay a small, tattered book. Sarah picked up the book, her hands trembling. It looks like a journal. She opened it and began to read aloud. The entries were filled with desperate pleas for help, describing how the Thompson family had been tormented by a malevolent presence. The last entry was a warning. "Do not open the door. It is the only thing keeping it at bay." Suddenly, the temperature in the room plummeted. The candles extinguished, plunging them into darkness. The scratching noise grew louder, more frenzied. Jack and Sarah turned to leave, but the door slammed shut, trapping them inside. A cold, malevolent voice echoed through the room. "You shouldn't have come here." The walls began to shake, and the scratching turned into a deafening roar. The floor beneath them gave way, and they were plunged into the darkness below, their screams echoing through the empty house. The next morning, the townsfolk gathered outside the Thompson house. The front door was wide open, but there was no sign of Sarah and Jack. The house stood silent, its secrets hidden once more. And at night, if you listened closely, you could still hear the scratching as the uninvited guest awaited its next victims.